Hello and welcome. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap, and I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. I designed this show to share other women's stories and expertise and tips and practical strategies that help women navigate career and life changes and challenges. And most importantly, so that you know you're not alone. Every week through our conversations, we encourage women to become more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. We stream live weekly every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming service like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where you can interact with us. And as always, if you prefer to listen to your podcasts on the run, you can find us on all the podcast channels. So if something resonates with you, if it hits the mark for you today and you want more, subscribe to your favorite channel, leave a comment, share the favorite episodes so that we can create more ripples in the world for women. So I often start with a question, and today's no different. Here it is. Have you ever asked yourself, is this all there is? Or maybe you've asked, so what comes next for me? If you have, and you're seeking answers to those questions, I'm really glad you're here. Because when you're looking for more, the biggest challenge is overcoming self-doubt. Do I have what it takes? Am I good enough? What if it doesn't work out? I know this from experience, and it's the number one barrier for my clients today. That's why I want to introduce you to JJ DiGeronimo. After spending 5 years looking for answers for herself, she wrote a book called Seeking. The subtitle is 74 Key Findings to Raise Your Energy, Sidestep Your Self-Doubts, and Align with Your Life's Work. Now, today, we don't have time to hit all 74 findings, so we're going to focus on the big one, self-doubt. Let me tell you a little bit about JJ. She is a 3-time award-winning author, speaker, and former tech industry leader. She is passionate about helping women elevate their frequencies and amplify their impact through proven strategies, mindfulness, and energetic practices. Her wisdom has graced leadership circles for women and big name companies like Amazon, IBM, and Microsoft. And if you're reading platforms like Forbes and Thrive Global, you might have read some of her featured articles. She has 2 other gems, 2 another award-winning books, Accelerate Your Impact and The Working Woman's GPS. And if you love to tune into podcasts, check out her hit show, Together We Seek. So let's talk with JJ and dig under this subject of self-doubt. Hello, JJ. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. I'm so honored to be here with you now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I want to jump in. Um, why do you focus on self-doubt?
Well, after years of working with women, and as you mentioned, it's not my first career. My first career is computer science, and I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley in data centers and working on next generation technologies. But once I decided to have kids in my mid to late 30s, I had a whole new perspective on what it meant to strive and work to have it all and keep everything together. And my work is just as much about my journey as it is about the women I share it with. And so, since I am a woman and I am in the workforce, I gather as a human design number 3, I gather all the best practices and then package them up and share them with women so they don't have to go in every corner or cross every obstacle, that I could potentially share the wisdom that I've gathered to make their journey a little bit more eloquent than mine.
I love that. I say something similar. I like to make it easier for women than it was for me.
Mm.
So yeah, I understand that. So tell us, based on, you've done a lot of research, you've written a whole book on this, and that's after doing your own, going through your own process of discovery. Let's talk about the source of self-doubt. Where
Mm.
does it come from?
Yeah, so self-doubt is something that I didn't really recognize until I was well into my 40s. I was always, a Zig Ziglar reader and Think and Grow Rich, and you can make it happen if you can envision it. But I really didn't pick up on the tips of like what you think about will manifest where you are and where you go. And even though I read The Secret and many other books, I didn't really understand that you had space between your thoughts. And it wasn't for several things that happened in my life that forced me to think about my life differently. And that's where I really started to understand like that my thoughts are only a piece of who I am. And even though I use them so often to create things and move forward and analyze, I can actually create space between those thoughts and myself. And instead of grabbing onto every little thing I think about, which usually focused on the past of what maybe did or did not go right, or the future of what I was going to do, I could just watch them and see which ones I wanted to listen to, see which ones had like triggered me. And I didn't really know that until I was really highly encouraged to take the path to learn mindfulness, which I did not do easily. I thought it was actually quite goofy mindfulness until I actually got into the class and started learning the benefits of creating that space for yourself. And when you create space for yourself, you are able to kind of see how you talk to yourself. What do you say? What are the fears that come up? What might be holding you back? And when I started to recognize all of those things for me, I started to see all of that in other women. And that's why I really focus on addressing that right out of the gate when I talk to women in groups or online or in different events, because I feel like no matter what, I'm here to teach you about accelerating your path and making your desires your reality. You often have to start with how you talk to yourself, what you think about, and what you focus on.
Okay, let's dig under that a little bit. What are some of those things that you found during your discovery period? I mean, you and I can talk about what we each have discovered, but what are we saying?
Yeah.
What are we saying to ourselves that bring up the self doubt that holds us back? What are those kinds of things?
Yeah, it's funny because if you were to ask people, like, what are you afraid of? Most people would say snakes, heights, scary movies.
Yeah.
But then you say, well, what are you afraid of at work? Or what are you afraid of to go after that position or to strive for that board seat or to even create that business that's been nagging for you to jump into it? And it's funny because then you'll start to hear these fears that often hold us back. So, fear of not knowing what I'm doing, fear of looking ridiculous, fear of people seeing me fail, fear of disappointing my loved ones,
Mm.
fear of falling on my face. I mean, really serious fears. And fears can be good too, because they can drive us to get to that next level. But the fears that
Right.
hold us back are very much about how do I feel about myself? How do I look to others? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? Am I going to be able to maintain my role, all this hard work I've put into date? Am I going to be able to maintain the political capital I've established to date? And those are the fears that keep us in a standstill.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do we how do we not allow them to hold us back. So you talked about a lot of the fears that I hear every day from my clients as well. One of the things I recognize when I ask the similar questions to what you ask is that they have a hard time figuring out what those fears really are.
Yeah.
And when you start to say, well, what about this? Have you ever thought about that? What about this one? Some of the ones you've just described. It starts to open the floodgates, right? And then they start to realize that, oh, yeah, I do think that. I do feel that. I do care what other people think. I am afraid if I make this decision, I'll disappoint someone. Yeah. So how do we, maybe the question is why? Why do we let those hold us back?
Oh boy. Well, I'll have to say that I know this just as well as you do, and anybody really, is that this has been defined a lot early in our life. Some of these fears have been set up since we've been adolescents or grade school children, or even college or our first relationship. We carry and build these stories about who we are and how we move through the world throughout our entire lives. And these stories are the ones that, well, that has happened before and that did not feel good. So I don't want to repeat that pattern.
Yeah.
Or they said I wasn't good at this person said I wasn't good at this at one point. So why would I ever do that? Which was a fear that came up for me because I'm dyslexic, which I didn't know when I was younger, but I got D's on my English papers. So when they said you should write a book with all these findings of women, my first thought is I could never write a book. I got D's on my English paper. So really dissecting what are the stories that come up. And, I was taking mindfulness classes while I was reading Brene Brown's Rising Strong. And it was like a parallel message. I was learning how to be aware of my thoughts while listening to how her thoughts impacted her decisions. And that, to me, that combination of the class and the book really gave me the opportunity, awareness, and skills to really sit down and listen to what I say to myself anytime I say, oh, I think I'm going to try this, or what if I go in this new direction, or what if I decide to do this? And then I just sit. And I really just look to see what stories come forward. And oftentimes now I'll take that and wind it back to, where did that story start? Where did that story start? And let me tell you, I'm skilled now with doing this. I had to work with many energy practitioners, Reiki practitioners, tapping, EFT. I worked with all types of people to help me get under the hood of all the stories that I was burying and hiding behind.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's why it's so difficult for many people. We're talking with women mostly, but for many people to uncover what it is that's holding us back. What are those fears? Because we don't want to know where they come from. We're afraid to know where they come from, or we can't even open ourselves up enough to explore that. That's scary. It is scary. And the fact, I love that you said a couple of brilliant things. In the beginning, you talked about creating space for ourselves to be with our thoughts and to get curious about where they come from and why do I feel this way? And ask ourselves, does it really matter to me today? Does it serve me to feel this way, to be afraid still? Does it, for you in your story, you got D's on your English paper, so what would ever possess you to write a book, right? But you're not that same person anymore.
Well, and there's editors. I mean, I don't need to be perfect
We
at
get
grammar.
help, right?
Right.
That's
Like,
right.
I just feel like you can work around any obstacle that comes forward to you at any time. I just feel like many of us are sitting on the side of the pool. We're dressed, ready to jump in, but we're saying, well, I'm just not sure I'm ready to go in. I don't know if my bathing suit will fit right. I don't know if I'm going to like the water. I don't know if the other people, if there's space for me. And I feel like at this point in my life, like we need more women at more tables. We need more women leaning
Yeah.
into their whispers, and we need more women saying yes to whatever is coming up for them. And if we talk about self doubt and normalize it, we all have it. And we talk about ways to maybe move through it or step around it because it really is never going to go away, in my opinion. We may get more women saying, you know what? I'm going to just try it. Let me see what I can do with this, as Jen Sincero would say. Let me see. Because honestly, like us sitting back waiting to be 100% is doing none of us any good.
Right.
So I think for so many of us, we have things on our heart that we are here to do. And we have not yet really leaned into those, often because the doubts are so overwhelming of failure, looking ridiculous, not knowing what you're doing, that you're sitting with it. And I feel like for so many of us, if we just talk about all of our self doubts, it normalizes it and it recognizes that you and I have self doubt and we're pushing forward. So, anybody listening that has something on their heart that they want to lean into, you can do it too. You can do it too.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. It takes some encouragement. It also takes knowing that you're not alone in this.
Mm.
You said it. Everyone has self-doubt. Everyone, even men have self-doubt. What they do with it is a little different than what we do with it, right? It's easier somehow for men to just barrel forward, like a bull in a china shop sometimes, and just do it. The whole the Nike, commercial slogan, just do it. That's what a lot of men do. A lot of women don't, because we were raised to be perfect.
Yes, and I talk about perfection. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah,
so in the
yeah,
book, I go through all these obstacles that I had to work through. My stories about money, my stories with my family and each family member, my stories of times confidence have walked out the back door. But I also have my largest chapter in this third book, Seeking, is perfectionism, because I used to pride myself on being perfect. I would dot every I, cross every T. I was over prepared in so many ways. And I would tell people I am a perfectionist, and I would stand by it so proudly. But in reality, perfectionism is really just a cape to protect yourself from vulnerabilities of not feeling good enough. So you overproduce and overdo so that people will not know how afraid you really feel.
right, right. And the imposter syndrome just seeps in there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've learned to call myself a recovering perfectionist, because I was like that too. Everything had to be just right, or I thought that I would not be seen the way I wanted to be seen. And if I'm not perfect, and I have my father's voice in my head still, and I have to separate myself. That creating space when I hear that voice. Wait a second. It's not true for me anymore, but I still hear it.
Oh, we do. We do. And it's funny. The guru, I'm not your guru, Tony Robbins, I think it's on Netflix, says, which parent did you want the most love from, and what did you have to do to get it?
Hmm. Wow, that's a powerful question. Yeah. For me, it was my father.
Mm.
It
It's a
seemed like, with my mother, I could do anything and it would be all right. It would be good. Not so much with my father. I got my perfectionist tendencies trying to please him. Yeah, it's a great question.
It is. And I often marry it with, our parents are one of our biggest teachers. So learning about yourself in a way to say, that's what I needed for that love. But what has it taught me now? For you and me, it's taught me that, for me, it's taught me that I don't need to be perfect to move forward and that I
Right.
can be 80, 70, even 60% prepared to just dive in because what I often think it's going to be, it's not anyways. And I couldn't be prepared even if I tried. So why not just get in the water and see how I do?
Yeah. And care less about what other people think along the way. So, someone said once, I don't even know who to attribute this to. Someone said, what other people think is none of your business. And when I have taken that to heart for years now. I heard that years ago. And the first time I heard it, it stopped me in my tracks. And it was one of the best pieces of advice. I wish I knew where I got it because I'd love to thank them. Um, but it's none of my business what other people think about me. What matters is how I feel and what I think about myself and what I'm doing, and my values, and if we can center and get grounded on that stuff, the self doubt takes a back seat.
It does. It does. And think about how many times you've chewed on something or lost sleep over something, and either something that's already happened or something that's going to happen. And then you get into it and it doesn't even go the way that you had spent 7 hours planning for it to go. You think you're going to get every single thing ready and prepared, and then you get into it and all that goes out the window. I
Yeah.
even remember at one party a decade ago, I had talked to a woman that I knew, and I had made a comment about one of the people that she knew, because we had a working relationship together. And it was like an okay comment. It wasn't mean, but it wasn't nice. But it really bothered me that I said it. And so then about 3 years later, I had the opportunity to address it. And I said, when I said that, that was not kind. I don't even know why I said that. It was probably a bad day. That whole situation was a bad day. She didn't even know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Did not even know what I was talking about. And like, I just think so many people think so much less about you than
Then
you
we
could.
think.
Right. So like, and
That's
like,
so true.
yes. And so I think whatever you have on your heart, I get these whispers that come to me that give me guidance on what I should be doing. And in 16, I was walking off the stage of a big keynote, and I got sort of this idea to bring women outside. I know it wasn't my idea. It kind of was planted on me. And I was like, right now? No, I could never do that. I sat on that idea for 2 years because I just didn't really know what to do. I knew it was something with retreats and women outside, and I did nothing and nothing. And you know why? Because I was worried about how much to charge. I was worried about who'd show up. I'd worry if I was going to lose money. I'd worry if I disappointed my friends that came. I worried that the practitioners wouldn't think it was worth it. I thought of 100 reasons why not to start it. And I eventually ended up talking to a medium by the name of Dora. And I said, she asked me if I had a question. I said, I have this thing that keeps coming to me, bring women outside. She asked me to tell her about it. I did. And she's like, JJ, why don't you start that? And I'm like, I'm just so filled with fear. And she said, JJ, build what you want to go to. And if nobody shows up, it's a day of wellness and reflection and centeredness for you.
Oh,
Just
that's
shifting the
right.
outcome.
That's right. Just thinking about it differently. Yeah.
Yes.
New perspective, different way to look at it. Yeah. If no, I love that. I love
Yes.
that.
And 12 women showed up. And even when they were walking in the door for this event, they've paid. The chef is the organic chef's there. I have my tapping teacher to help people how to get in the moment. I set up all these things that had helped me so much get in the moment and get around that self-doubt. As they're walking in the door, I am sweating bullets going, are you crazy? Why did you start this? This is never going to work. Women are not going to be happy. They're going to think
Oh,
they pay
wow.
too much. And I had to be like, ah, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
And just last month, I had my 14th retreat outside.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. And look what happened. For how long your self-doubt, all of those niggling
Mhm. Yeah.
voices in your head that you could not put a stop to for 2 years. And then look what it turned out to be. And I'm sure you're in some ways, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to debunk it. But in some ways you're probably kicking yourself. I'm going to debunk that by saying it happened at the right time. It happened when you were ready. And that's the other thing. We have to give ourselves some grace about this self-doubt. It's
We
there
do.
for a reason,
Yeah.
right? We just can't make it the loudest voice in our head all the time.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I do think my window has gotten shorter on when I get the whisper or the idea or the inspiration. My window has gotten shorter, but I still go through a series of, like, I was leaving Mount Shasta over a year ago, and as I was leaving Mount Shasta, I got a message to bring the mystics together, and I'm driving in the rental car going, "You've got the wrong car." Like, what? Bring the mystics together? What the heck is that? Well, today I'm doing a whole podcast on Together We Seek, where I'm interviewing all these energy practitioners and healers. And the time frame was like a year from the time I got the message till the time I started. So my window is getting shorter, but I have self-doubt all the time.
All the time.
And
Yeah.
I'm getting better at just trying it out and
Yeah.
seeing what I can do. But I will not, but I would be misleading you to think that I get around it the minute I get the idea, because
Yeah,
it's
of
not.
course.
I have a slew of reasons why I don't move forward.
Yeah. And that's the art and the science of it, right? It is recognizing it first, hearing the voices, understanding that they are here because of experiences you've had in your life, and you've created these stories about it that have played out for years, and now it's it's routine, it's what you know, and questioning it is what you don't know. And until you really get comfortable just starting to get curious about it and giving it some space, and then asking yourself some really deep questions about, is this serving me now? Does this make me feel good now to know that to be perfect, to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and plan so hard, and then have it blow up, and nothing works the way I wanted it to work? Is it really, is that serving me? And if it's not, what do you want to do about it instead? So it's really just getting curious. Tell me about, for you, what's on the other side of, so you've explained a couple of situations that the outcome has been great. It's taken a while, but tell us what's on the other side of getting comfortable with self-doubt.
Well, that's a great question. I would say, and many of you may have already heard Oprah say this, and I have to say, I believe is that I could have never dreamed a dream as big as for this from myself. So when I lean into things that are calling me, like I wrote the books, and then I started the retreats, and then I started the mystical community, each one of those steps has prepared me for what is ahead. And I have to say, I've been granted some amazing things to do that I would not have really had come my way. And I probably couldn't even have planned these if I put a business plan together, because all I really had to do was lean into what was calling me at that time. And when I leaned in, almost like the next door would open, the next opportunity would present itself. And I feel like you can get out of the business of planning and replanning. And, I even had a woman call me the other day. She's like, okay, so let's back into how much money and what you want to make and da, da, da. I go, I don't live life like that anymore. I
Yeah.
don't live like that. I live into what is calling me, and am I leaning into it? And if I'm leaning into it, what is the universe showing me to validate that I'm moving in the right direction?
That's a beautiful way to be. Um, Not easy for a lot of people. And it takes a lot of work to get there, doesn't it? It takes
Oh,
a lot of inner work to be able to relax enough to allow.
yeah. I mean, money has been my biggest hurdle. If I was really honest, how I viewed money, how I let money make decisions for me, what type of energy I gave money, and how much I used it as a fear tactic in my life.
Never enough.
Not
The
now.
lack, the lack. Yeah,
Can't do it.
yeah.
Not worth it.
So let's talk about. So we're talking about aligning your energy so that it allows you to be more open for self-doubt to take a hike and for things to come to us. Let's talk about that. What does energy alignment have to do with all of this?
Hmm. Well, it's something I believe wholeheartedly in now, is that your energy essentially shows you what's happening around you. And what I mean by that is, obviously I mentioned that I started in computers, and before that I started in analog, and I worked in all different type technologies, and FM radio stands for frequency modulation. And I talk a lot about frequency now, because frequency is sort of what level is your energy at. And if you think about it like a radio station, are you at 87.4, 92.1, 97.8, 102.4? It doesn't matter where you are on the frequency scale, but you have the ability to shift your energy at any time. And the first step of shifting your energy is how you talk to yourself. What
Yeah.
do you listen to? What do you have a conversation about in your head, either about your own decisions or someone else's decisions? That's step one. Step two is, what do you pay attention to? What do you watch? What do you read? What conversations are you in? And three, how do you take care of yourself? What are you eating? How are you spending your time? What are you doing to invest and to raise your energy? And I think for many of us, if we start to be mindful about how we move through our day, we can learn to raise our frequency up. Because once you change the energy on the inside, you change your view on the outside.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Once you change your energy on the inside, you change your view on the outside. This reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Mm.
It's a very similar concept. I love that. I love that.
Mm.
So this means that we have to, with regard to our energy, we kind of have to mine it, right? We have to mine it for those golden nuggets, right?
You do. And that's really what I talk about in my third book, is how do you get from sort of where you are now to where you want to go, working from the inside out? Because most of my career, I've been striving and driving on the outside, and I could only get to a certain point. You can only get to a certain point in what experiences you have and how you feel about your work and your life when you're always external. So I had to bring it back inside. It's an inside job. Come back to the inside, understand the stories, understand the energy I was carrying, understand where it came from, clear out things that were not working for me, to create more room for that light, that energy, abundance, gratitude. And I had to train myself to do that. Unfortunately, our society seems to really lean into fear, worry, doubt, anxiety. So we have to take the time to train ourselves to live in the love, abundance, gratitude, opportunity. And I'm not corny. Like I'm not this corny person. Everything has to have metrics and numbers. I have an engineering mind. And so I build charts and I pay attention to how I move through the day, because a lot of times just saying, oh, you have to be happier, that doesn't really resonate with me. I don't know how to be happier, but I do know now how to pick things in my day that align with something that's important to me or aligns to what I want to have more influence and impact. I now know how much time I want to spend on things that excite me and how much time I want to spend on things that deplete me. And I think I really had to take that engineering mindset and do this self analysis to really figure out my gaps and kind of my ditches of where my energy was just so low, so that I could really start to work through that, so that I could align to the energy I wanted to resonate at or the frequency I wanted to be at.
You know, I love that you put it in those terms, because a lot of people may be listening to this conversation that we're having and think, that's really woo woo. I am so glad that you brought it back to where you come from, how you are built, that with that, kind of analytical engineering kind of way of thinking, and that you had to figure it out for yourself, understanding what was happening for you on the inside and kind of making sense of it for you in your world and how you are. So I'm really glad you said that, because I know there are a lot of women who are going through the motions in their corporate world, maybe even in their own business. And they are thinking some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of this show. I'm doing this to impress someone. I need people to like me. I need people to believe that I am of value. I'm living by other people's or up to other people's expectations. All of that external stuff. But what you shared with us is that it doesn't have to be just that. And when you start thinking and feeling from the inside out and figuring this out, you understand where self-doubt starts to come from. And then you can do something about it.
Yeah. And there's no accidents. Even if you're listening and you're not even sure what I'm talking about, it's okay. It's okay. This is kind of something that it's amazing how you hear what you need to hear when you need to hear it. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense, but it just gets you a little bit more, just kind of maybe tilting your head or thinking, wait, what? How does that? Why am I hearing this now? There really are no accidents. That many of us hear things multiple times before we really understand the messages that are coming our way.
Yeah, that's so true. For me, the number is 3. When I hear the same thing 3 times, it really resonates with me, and I go, wait a second. I think I better pay attention to this. I have seen it come at me from different places, and it's the same message. I think I better pay attention to this. Yeah. It does take multiple times for us to get it, to figure out whether it's even something we should pay attention to.
Yes. But I think if you're overworked, you're depleted, things are falling apart around you, you're just not where you think you need to be. This is the
Right.
time to start like doing things differently.
Yeah.
Carve out 20 minutes a week, 20 minutes on Saturday, an hour on Sunday. Do some reading, go to a class, get some information. Just start to value and invest in yourself in a different way.
Right. Just open yourself up to the possibility that there might be something different, another way,
Right.
and just explore. Absolutely. So, JJ, what has shifted for you now that you have come into this awareness and perspective?
I mean, I feel like my whole life has shifted in some capacity because when you start to be really cognizant of your energy, when you really think about how you talk to yourself, what you say to others, how you engage in conversation, what you listen to and pay attention to, it's almost inevitable that you raise your frequency, you raise your energy, and like attracts like. So as your energy raises, your life turns in a different direction. Sometimes it expands, or maybe you just do something totally different. So I think for many of us, if we're just at a place of no return, or we're just sick of what we're doing, what does it hurt to just kind of mind your thoughts? Pay attention how you're talking about people, your neighbors, coworkers. Pay attention to what you're watching and reading. I really turn my phone into an education device. I listen to audibles. I listen to inspiring videos and meditations on YouTube. I'm not watching things that make me feel yucky or scare me or even bring me down, because I feel like life is about an exchange of energy. And that's how I live my life. I get up every morning and have a quote on my wall that says, "Get rich from the energy you exchange." And I live by that. And even with all my money issues, which I go into great detail, I've been more fruitful in my work because my energy is attracting great opportunities and exciting next steps that I don't think would have happened if I didn't do the inside work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's so true, and it's so powerful. I'm so glad that you have helped us understand from your perspective what's happened for you as a result of first becoming aware of what you're thinking. I love the way you put it, of who you're talking to, what you're listening to, what you're saying, what you're hearing in your own head, just being aware, and then deciding that some of it serves you and some of it doesn't. And then that which doesn't serve you, what do you want to do about that? And then get curious and start reading, listening, and exploring other ways, other possibilities. JJ, thank you so much for sharing your great energy with us today and your wisdom from your journey, and from the research you've done and your book. I really appreciate it. I'd love for you to just wrap this up in a bow for us and our listeners. Uh, Tell us, what are the three key takeaways that our audience can take with them today?
Well, thank you for having me. I could have never imagined this was going to be my conversation when I started writing books. And I am so passionate about having more women at more tables. And I do believe that that will only happen if we do the inside work, if we really know what's holding us back from leaning in. And there are a plethora of resources out there to do it. You can start with my book, Seeking. I've put everything I've done to sort of get on the other side of the voices in my head and the doubts and the fears that I encounter on a regular basis. But I think for many of us, I think it's that nothing happens on accident. And that if you were with us here today or listening to the recording, there is a message here for you. It's likely you have a higher or bigger calling that is really looking for you to lean in, and that this is absolutely no mistake that you're with us. And I hope that you keep us posted on what that is, and maybe even document what you might do between now and 36 hours from now to lean into something that's calling you. So either do some research, make a phone call, send an email, maybe make a plan of something you're going to do in the steps to make that so, because you are likely the only person that has the skill set, the knowledge, and the gifts to lean into what is calling you. And we're all here for a purpose. So leaning into that sooner rather than later will be a gift to all of us.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that you are here today. I love your book. I'm going to hold it up one more time for those who are watching. Go get her book. It is amazing. She's talked about all the things she talks about: money, perfectionism, doubt, and so many other things. And she goes deep into her journey and the questions she asked herself. And all of those will be helpful for you. So, JJ, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of our community. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, click a star, tell us what you think. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for women. Plus, as a career and life coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times more easily and more gracefully. So, if something in this episode resonates and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out to one of us. Let's have a talk. The links to connect with us are below. And let's meet again here next Thursday and every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.